Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another huge week of KFC SuperCoach TV. I'm Al Payton here at the Herald Sun, joined by the two Dans. We hopefully will have another very special guest signing in pretty shortly, someone we haven't spoken to in a couple of weeks, but his SuperCoach team is absolutely flying, so it'd be great if he can join us. But
who's that, I wonder?
Tim Mitchell. No, it's an interesting time, an interesting week, and I have to say, I don't think I've ever seen the GOAT, Dan Bagala, as nervous as he is when we got on air here, waiting for the teams in about just over 2 hours' time. Obviously, we can come up with all the strategy and tactics that we like, but I mean, do we just need to get is the first priority, Dan Bagala, to throw straight to you, that we just want to get 18 scoring players on field?
Yeah, I think the priority every week of the buys is to get 18 where possible, if not more. And this week seems to be the crucible moment where everyone's going to be really struggling, I think. And I think there's been a few decisions made at the selection table that are also going to hinder that. Likes of Hayes missing with her illness, Bruce unlikely or not guaranteed for Sunday. And then tonight, all eyes will be on Mitch Owens, who scored 2 on debut and then obviously backed it up with a really substantially improved game against North Melbourne 2 weeks ago. So my team's ability to get to 18 actually hinges on his ability to get picked tonight, because I'm pretty much going to run with one donut if he doesn't get selected tonight. I went early on him last week after his amazing first game where he had an octopus, that's 10 tackles, amazing performance to start his second game. But look, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of, well, not really stress. There's a lot of anxiety out there, but I suspect I'm confident I'm going to be 60-40 he'll get selected tonight. I just think it'd break a kid's heart to drop him after 10 tackles, 2 goals, 14 disposals, and a pretty clinical effort for a second game. And to go back to the VFL and cut his teeth there in the second sort of tier level, I think that's sort of a testament to his resilience, and he deserves a game. So Rats, please look after the Supercoach brethren tonight, and please select Mitch Owens for probably 50 points.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, he's probably not going to score that much anyway. But yeah, just psychologically, having 18 scores feels so much better than 17 or 16, which we might be looking at. So yeah, Jacob Ware's the other one that I'm really hoping he'll get named for GWS. He's played 2 games. Hoping he gets named for his third. He's been okay, but we think Lockie Whitfield's back. Nick Haynes is probably back. So there's question marks there. And yeah, we're not sure about Mitch Owens. There was some reports from Saints training today that he was maybe running around in the black jumpers or the white jumpers. I'm not sure which one it was that was causing some anxiety there. So, yeah, we are definitely hanging out for teams. But how's your how many blue dots have you got on the field or playing players on the field, Dan, this week? Dan Batten,
just firstly on Dan, do I see a wrinkle there? The first wrinkle of his life. The stress is getting to him, I think.
That's the stress. Mitch Owens, I think. That's it. I'll attribute to that. I might name it Mitch Owens or Rats or something like that. But yeah, he's wearing the white.
That's a nice name for a wrinkle.
Well, I checked out the Instagram and I saw he was wearing a white jumper and the rest of them were wearing black. But look, who knows? That could be a matchups thing. Who knows? But I'm not going to buy into it. I'm just going to let the teams drop tonight and can't control anything, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. I was one of the ones who traded him in a week before, trying to bank some cash for this week. So I'm hoping, crossing my fingers and toes, that he does play. It does depend a bit, Al, whether Jacob Ware plays, whether if he doesn't play, is there any other replacement in defence? I was hoping to double upgrade this week. I'm toing and froing about whether to get gone, because I think it's just going to shoot myself in the foot for next week. If I do, I'll probably end up with, probably round 14 is my worst bye week. I may end up having about 16, 17 players if I get Max gone. So may just go with Zach Merritt and Sinclair, I think, and then look to maybe get English or Witts or potentially go on the week after to finish off my team. But could be anywhere from about 16 to 18. I was hoping for 19 with Morris, but as we know, he got dropped last night. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting team tonight for sure.
Yeah, Chris, there. We try and keep your chin up, mate. And I think one message out of this is that you're not the only one who's maybe struggling a bit this week in Supercoach. It's going to be a bit of a battle for everyone to get enough playing players on field. I guess one little positive last night was that Richmond named a debutant. Probably knocked Maurice Rioli Jr. out, which wasn't ideal. But Judson Clark is going to play tonight at the MCG. I guess one positive thing, too, to try and remember is that there's only about barely an hour between team selection and the first game of the round tonight, but I don't think Richmond and Port Adelaide players will impact KFC Supercoach teams too much.
Besides Sam Hayes, I reckon that's the big one.
Yeah,
People are trading out Hayes. Yeah.
So, but yeah, most players, I'm certainly looking at, if you're trying to get a Merritt or a Doherty or a Sinclair, these sort of guys, you can sort of, you don't have to do it before the first bounce tonight. So eases the tension a tiny bit. But if you wanted to, if he's the only cheapie there, we probably might have to pick Judson Clark if we want to just get a warm body, as we like to say. What can you tell us about Judson, Dan? Is he sort of Maurice Rioli style small forward?
I think so, but I feel like he can get more of the footy. And we know that Morris, there were times where he get 4 or 5 disposals in a full game. I think Judson has more capacity to win the footy. I really liked him during his draft year, provides some real X factor. He's really got some good speed and agility, which is a good mix for a small forward type. Played a bit of wing in his under 18 level as well, but I think he's probably going to be stationed as a half forward. But also uses the ball really well. Averages 79 KFC SuperCoach points in the VFL this year and only been held goalless twice. So he's been fairly consistent at that level at least. The only issue I have here we go. The big shows here. Big 189. But no, just finally on Judson Clark. I think that when you've got guys like Castagna, Maurice Rioli in the twos, I'd be wanting to wait at least a week to watch to see how he goes at AFL level before taking the punt on him.
Phantom, welcome. Fantastic to have you back. How are things travelling in the League? We know your KFC SuperCoach team is absolutely flying. We've just been going through all the players who probably aren't playing this weekend, but one who is Judson Clark. Would you be prepared to bring him in for his first game if it meant getting 18 on field?
Hello, all. Welcome to all listeners again. Thanks for having me back on board. Dan Bagala in the hat. What's happened? I've only been gone a couple of weeks.
He's stressed. He's stressed.
Yeah. He's got wrinkles. He's got his first wrinkle.
I'm stressed, mate. Having a bad hair day. Just have to wear the cap.
My team is looking okay. Judson Clark, I think, so Dan was talking about some good junior numbers, a lively player, but still it's hard to take a guy who hasn't yet played a game, especially on a Thursday night. So I'll let him go for a while and just run the gauntlet, I guess, with some team selections that will hopefully get some good news later on tonight.
But, I mean, just to quickly jump in, that didn't stop you from getting Matty Roberts after not playing a game. Phantom, how did he go in his debut?
Well, it's an ambush. I have to set you up on this. Yes, that was I'm allowed one bad trade call for the year, Dan. So that can be it, Matty Roberts. I jumped on. I needed some cash. It allowed me to make an upgrade. I was hoping he'd just play that one game through Sydney's bye last week. Didn't. Was pretty poor on debut. So disappointing for him. We know he's got massive junior numbers, but I'll take that one. Wasn't a great move.
And the other team that we're watching very closely when the teams come out will be GWS. We mentioned Jacob Ware and Braden Pruce. I'm really relying on him to play to get 18 this week. Scott asking if we've got any news out of the GWS camp. I mean, I haven't seen a lot apart from Mark McVeigh yesterday. His comments were, I wasn't really sure how to read them. It was like, he's been a bit sick. He's had a few issues with his body. He's trained really strongly. But if he doesn't come up, maybe he won't play. And maybe we'll just play him next week. So, you could sort of read that glass half full or glass half empty. I know, Dan Bagala, you're pretty worried about Prusy. Do you think he'll get up this week?
Well, I actually traded him last week, funnily enough. I just went on the notion that in the past I've been burnt by situations like this whereby I've been hesitant to move someone on. I've backed them in to come back and they never come back in the timeframes that sort of get prescribed sometimes, unless they're the absolute top tier echelon of A-grade players. So I shorted him 2 weeks ago or last week for English, which wasn't the best move so far or immediately, but long term I think it will be great. But look, I'd be worried if I was a coach out there still holding Bruce because Flynn's probably pretty stiff opposition to take the spot. But again, when your coach is non-committal like that, maybe he's just sharking the opposition. And they're playing North Melbourne, so not exactly playing the reigning flag contenders. But he's being a bit cagey on that front. I suspect he might miss again, or at least he might get named in the extended squad with confirmation to come late Friday, which probably also hurts you in terms of preparing for the weekend because you might need to move a Rioli on or you might need to make a move that's pending tonight's game with Sam Hayes. So, this is probably in my view, this probably falls down as probably the most nerve-wracking teams we've had for the year. It's round 12 or round 13, whatever round we're in, round 13. And I'm probably most worried about tonight because I don't like to ever dish up donuts. And there's a big chance if Mitch Owens doesn't get selected, he could be the sub. But if he doesn't get selected tonight, there's no way I can't even get to 18. I'll be at 14 starters and I'll have to add 3. I'll add 2 primos and a rookie and get to 17. But it's going to be 16 primos and a rookie. So I will score well. It's just that I will feel like I left some on the table. And as they say in Gattaca, you don't save anything with a swim back. I want to score 18 scores. I don't care if he
Had
scores
to get
one.
that in
I want
somewhere.
18. 1 point. I don't care. I want 18 players. I want to know that I gave it my best. And I can't give my best with 17 players, unfortunately.
Can't believe I'm saying this now, but bring Leon Cameron back, my man. What it's almost life is easier with him in the chair. I read the Bruce thing a little bit. I'm worried, of course, but I read it a little bit differently. A couple of weeks ago, when he was out, then he played in the VFL, and we all panicked that Mark McVeigh likes Matt Flynn better. So I'd rather hear what he said yesterday than if he came out and said, Flinny's going really well. Bruce has got to do a lot of work to get back in. So I'm a little bit. Not confident, but I'm happy hearing that maybe Bruce still is the main man. Just got to get his body right, which obviously is an issue in itself as well. But it doesn't sound like Flynn is holding him out spot. Maybe it's his own body. So fingers crossed. In a couple of hours we do hear that. Some good news.
If he's not named Phantom, if you're in a situation like me where he's my R2, do you panic and trade him to someone who's playing, or try and get through this week at least and hope he's back next week? As you say, it's just, they want to make sure he's 100%. And then I suppose if he's not picked next week, at least you could maybe try and get to a Jared Witts or someone like Tim English, someone like that.
Yeah, I think so. I had a plan a couple of weeks out. If he wasn't going to get back into the side, I would trade him to a midfield premium, maybe Sam Walsh, and play Tim English in the ruck going forward. That was when maybe there was some concern about his place in the side in terms of the pecking order. But I think if he's not picked, it's hard to swallow, but I'd probably wait a week and reassess him. Probably a good chance he is back next week if he doesn't play on Sunday. And again, gives him more options to trade to if he can. So I think it's probably the better option to wait and see, as hard as it might be, than force something this week.
Yeah, the situation I'm in, if I traded him to someone who's playing, it would mean I couldn't do one of my other trades. So I'm going to be short of 18 anyway. Shawnee's asked here, Dan Batten, to trade anyone to trade in for Hayes. There's no one cheaper than him who's playing, is there? Unless you can get some cash and get up to a Toby Nankervis or somebody.
Yeah, I think so. The one to watch, I think, for next week, maybe Luke Stranatica. He returned last week from a calf injury in the waffle, had 31 hitouts, and is a 102k ruckman. Also, Bryn Teagle, Ken Hinkley in his press sort of hinted that he might not be too far away, and he is more versatile than Sam Hayes. Sam Hayes can essentially just, ruck, win a hit out, not really win much of the footy, and he's back on the bench. Whereas Bryn Teagle, I think, can impact a bit more up forward and also in the ruck. So, well, that's sort of how he's been. That's how he's been. He's a bit one-dimensional, but no, I think that Bryn Teagle could be in the mix as well later on. So you could do that. If you're looking okay this week for numbers, you could potentially take a punt on either of them to downgrade, but otherwise I think it is an upgrade. Toby Nankervis is the point of difference option there, but otherwise you could maybe wait a week for Witts or English, or potentially go on Gawn this week if you're fearing all right for round 14.
Another GWS name there, Cooper Hamilton, be handy if he got named, but who knows with Giants selection. The other big debate, Dan McGull, this week is people assuming we can find someone to downgrade to get some money. Most people want to make a big midfield upgrade, and the top two seem to be Darcy Parish and Sam Walsh, both around the 620k mark, both sort of averaging 120. And then you could probably throw Josh Kelly into the mix as well. He's got the highest 5-round average in the comp, and he's coming up against the Kangaroos this week. And Fantasy Freako tweeted today about how he's getting 8 more centre bounces with Mark McVeigh as coach. So obviously there's a little bit of injury risk there, but he could really pay off in terms of big scores. So you've got all those guys around between 620 and 630k, or you've got Zach Merritt at 520. If you had to pick one, or how do you weigh up picking one of those absolute top dogs, or Merritt, and then you've got 100k left over to spend somewhere else?
I'm always a value-based sort of Supercoach player, and I think if you take out Merritt's 57, I think he had a bit of a mare a couple of weeks ago. He's averaging 113 points, so he's not that far off those fellas, except his role hasn't been as centre bounce centric as it has been in the past. I think Phantom might be in the same boat here, but I think that Walsh could come home with the wettest of sails of any player in the comp. I think he could come home with an average in the vicinity of 125 plus until season's end. I think he's back to his best. He's shaken off that syndesmosis that he did in the preseason, and he's had another break that probably just gets his body refreshed for the run home, with the Blues chasing elusive top 4, top 8, whatever it happens to be, and also fighting through injuries. So I would pick Walsh ahead of Parrish on that notion, and also Carlton will continue to probably win more than they do lose. But Merritt is a fantastic option, a historic, archetypal SuperCoach player who scores 110 points every week, year on year. Like, they don't grow on trees, and I think he's just one of them. That 57-point game really diminished his price, and I think people have all cottoned onto that, which is great. I'm probably going to have my hand forced and have to take Merritt. I did plan for Walsh and Cripps this week, both Carlton boys, Batman and Robin, but unfortunately it looks like it's going to be Cripps and Merritt via a few different strategies I've got in place, unless Were gets selected tonight, and also Owens. Owens is literally the crucible element of my side this week. He literally breaks my heart if he doesn't get selected, because I hate going into weekends with just donuts. I just don't like doing it. But yeah, in my opinion, Walsh will be up there with the highest ranking players from now until season's ends, disregarding everything that's already been done. From now, round 13 to the end, I think he'll be top 1 or 2 players before the season concludes.
Phantom, I know you're a big Sammy Walsh fan as well, and I certainly am. I loved having him in my team last year, but should I be nervous about having him and Cripps and George Hewitt, and a lot of people have Sam Doherty as well? We're worried about having too many dogs, and we all said, no, it doesn't matter. They're all scoring fantastic. And then they come out and play a game like they did last week against Geelong, and they all scored pretty average. So that'd be my only worry, that, Carlton has a bad week and you get you have 4 of your primos don't score well. So am I overthinking this?
I think so, a little bit. I agree with Dan McGarl about the Sam Walsh assessment in the run home. I'll have all those 4 Blues when I do trade in Sam Walsh this week. And it's slightly concerning. But again, you talk about the Bulldogs having a bit of a down week. They were still okay. Yes, Josh Dunkley was down, but even Tim English was an 80. You'd take that with Bont and McRae still scored over 3 figures. I think if you average it out over 13 rounds, I think it's not going to be too much of an issue. I think you're not going to trade out. You get Sam Walsh in, who we think might be one of the top scorers from this point onwards. Then maybe you assess what it does to a Patrick Cripps or someone like that in the long run. I don't think you avoid Sam Walsh because he got 3 other ones. Walsh could be the top scoring of all those Blues from this point onwards. So get him in and then maybe assess the other guys. But good players and good teams we know have scored together. It's not just the Dogs team. The Magpies do it in the past, in the glory years of Dane Swan, Scott Penderbury, Steele Sidham. They can all do it. They're all good players. They're all good scorers and they're winning. They can do it. So I think you're thinking too much into it now. But with the Zach Merritt thing as well, it all depends. If you can make that 100K work elsewhere and it means getting that extra primo in alongside it, or maybe getting an extra primo in next week for 1 trade rather than using 2 trades, then maybe you weigh it up. I think Zach Merritt is a great option if you can do that. But like the last question, if money is not an issue, if it doesn't matter what you're going to do with that 100K, then I'd go with Sam Walsh.
Well, Dan Batten, I'll throw to you on that. Yeah, a bit tied into that question about, maybe thinking about this week and next week. And Corey asking here, do you get Merritt or grab one of those primos this week, or maybe wait a week and you could get Callum Mills or Rory Laird next week? So you're better off just grabbing someone this week and getting that extra week of premium scoring, or a bit like my situation is a bit like as Phantom was saying, that I could just pay up and get Walsh this week and have an absolute superstar primo for the next 11 rounds or whatever it is. Or I could get Merritt and then I'd have enough money left over to do an upgrade and get Laird as well next week. So, how far ahead should we be looking with these things, or just get the best play you can get right now?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a case-by-case basis, I think. It really just comes down to how many trades you have left and what you could potentially do with that extra trade. Like, for instance, I'm probably going to get Merritt this week, which allows me to get Sinclair as well this week. And then in another 3 trades, hopefully get a ruckman like Gawn, Witts, or English and complete my team. And that'll leave me with about 7 trades left. So I think I'm in a position where I can't afford to get Walsh. I don't think. I've probably just got to try and get as many points of premiums as I can, and it may mean a bit of a sacrifice on quality. But we know Merritt can score. His potential is 115 for the rest of the year. So he's a value pick in that respect. Mills, I think, I know he's been so good for the Phantom this year, and he seems to just score points at will. He uses the ball so well. So he doesn't need those massive possession tallies to score 120. But I think, you could almost wait for hope that Mills plays a bad game. So you get him at a slightly cheaper price because I think that Merritt is a really value pick at this rate at 520k. But at the same time, if you have like more than 14, 15 trades going into this week, I'd definitely consider getting Mills, because that those extra points on all the other people getting Merritt could really pay off.
Dan Begala, what's your thoughts on potentially waiting? And then Corey's also thrown up a name like Tom Stewart, who now will have a break even of 200 in his next game, and he could come down to 550k in 2 or 3 weeks. Although I think the Cats play West Coast, so he might hit that 200. But should we be saving a little bit of money or saving a spot in the team for someone like him? And then even further down the track, you might get a Jack Steele in 3 weeks or someone like that. Or do we is that looking too far ahead?
Well, I think Corey's probably got a plethora of options available to him. Like, the elephant in the room is Sam Walsh. Like, he's probably a little bit cheaper than what Mills is. I think Mills is 630k roughly, pretty expensive, and then Walsh is relatively close to his starting price. And I thought that was pretty discounted when I looked at him in round 1. So I'd probably still pick an absolute headline player this week and try and get the jump on everyone if you're playing for rankings, because we know this week the distribution suggests that a lot of coaches are going to be pushed to the end of their tether this week. It's going to be 17s, 18s, maybe 16s filled up by most sides. So I think in Corey's situation, like, you want to put a bum on a seat, and that would be put a Walsh in there if you're looking for that top tier premium. And then if you're looking for that discounted asset, you look at a Cripps or you look at a Zerrett in this example. And we can't disregard what Zach Merritt's done in seasons gone past. He's been a top 8 midfielder pretty much his whole existence since he became an A grader. And for me, he had one bad game this year, and he's had a few games where he's had high 90s, but his low performances are very rare, and they obviously sometimes come with injury. So that example there, I think he might have been tagged or might have got a concussion. I'm not exactly sure, but I probably still like to take Merritt, but I think in this example with 10 rounds left or 11 rounds left, you don't want to sit in your hands and not put a premium in the seat. Fill the seat now, whether it's Walsh, whether it's Zerrett, and forget Mills if you have to. I wouldn't sit on my hands and wait when I've got. It's like anything. You want your money invested in the market. Like, you don't want to have your money sitting at 1% in the bank. You want to have it in the share market when the market's running hot. It's going to be running hot for Mills, Walsh, and those types, and Zerrett's as well. So for me, it's Zerrett or Walsh. I would forget Mills and say, look, you're a great looking primo, but Walsh is a good second bet. So I'd take him instead.
What if my view is that crashes, Walsh, though, Begala?
Yeah, well, it's like the cryptos or something like that. Or Walsh, in that example, and I think Phantom will say the same thing, but Walsh, Mills, Laird, that echelon, like A+. I guess they're averaging 5 to 10 more than what I think Merritt will. They might average 15 more than him, depending on what Merritt does. But if Merritt averages 110, I see Walsh, Mills in the 120 to 125 category each week. So you're giving up 10 to 15 points per week times 10, 150 points. That's quite a few rankings positions if you're at the pointy end, like the great Phantom over in South Australia. So that's what I think I would do. But look, I'll let Corey, Neil Armstrong make the call on that. But it's a big decision nonetheless.
Phantom, what about, what's your thoughts on Tom Stewart? Would does that get your attention when his price is dropping? But looking at defence for this week, if you're looking to bring in a primo defender, it seems to be the top 2 on most people's minds are Sam Doherty and Jack Sinclair. And Sinclair's been one of your great picks this year, one of your many. But Doherty's a little bit cheaper. Ash is a bit nervous about bringing him in. I mean, he's just the Sam Doherty story this year is just unbelievable considering what he was going through over summer. But and how do you think he'll go from here to the end of the year compared to a Sinclair, or I mean, even you could throw in a Dan Houston or someone who's going pretty well down back as well?
Yeah, 530k, so 30k cheaper or thereabouts. Doherty is than Jack Sinclair. And I think they'll be pretty much on par. I think from here, Doherty just gets so much of the footy in that Carlton back half. I wouldn't worry about his body. The way he's been going, the way he's been moving, and we know his story, but anything can happen to anyone. So I think he's going to back Doherty in from here. He's been so efficient with the ball. They like to use him. He takes the kick-ins. So if you've already got Sinclair, or even if you need to save the 30k and prefer Sam Doherty, I'd go Sam Doherty. I do like him. I jumped on him probably a couple of months or so now for Jake Bauer. I've been pretty happy. So, and not in overly that many teams really, not for the last couple of weeks anyway. It might become more popular now after the bye, but I like him as a pick, Ash. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Dan Batten, the other question that is on people's minds this week, and there was a good debate on the lair about this, but is Sam De Koning and Paddy McCartan both been fantastic rookie servants. Is there any argument? I mean, if you could manage to do it somehow to try and keep one, or I can't imagine you can do it with both, to hang on to one of them for bench cover going through the buys. I mean, obviously they're worth so much money that we want to try and unlock that cash, and that's how we can afford someone like Sam Walsh. But if you could somehow hang on to one of them, I remember before round one, the defensive bench, we were all having pulling our hair out, wondering if we're going to be able to find anybody to pick back there, and we picked De Koning, and he's been absolutely fantastic. But if I trade him out and I trade out McCartan, I'm probably going to have Jacob Ware and Buku Kamas or something as my defensive cover for the rest of the year, which doesn't really sound too great, to be honest. So, is there any way we could try and hang on to one of those guys?
Potentially, I think if you have Dacos, McCartan, and also De Koning, I think that there could be some sort of argument to maybe trading out two of them this week and keeping one, like potentially maybe Dacos, or depending how you're going, either round 13 or round 14, you could hold on to maybe like a McCartan or a De Koning. But yeah, I tend to be subscribe to the view like you're cashing in now while they have their buy, and then bringing in a premium as soon as possible. But at the same time, there certainly is an argument to do that, because who knows how our cover is going to be like into the future. And if we're back with 6-7 trades at the end of the buys or a week after the buys, and one of our big dogs does go down, or maybe even for just a week, you might have to burn a trade just to replace them. So I guess if you're in a luxurious position where you have a few and you may already have a full defense, potentially, definitely could look to hold on to them there, especially with sort of limited defensive options available. But I think one who could be a defensive rookie savior in the future is potentially Callum Dawson from North. Was picked up in the mid-season draft at pick 2 by North with the view to play him right away. He's a 24-year-old intercept defender. He may not score too flush, but I mean he's going to have plenty of footy back there, and he's set to play after their bye. He sort of suffered an injury on the eve of the draft, so I think at 102k, a mature ager, 24, and can intercept as well. I think he could be the one down the track that we can potentially rely on, and that does sort of enhance the argument to trading out both of them this week.
What about Will Gould?
You might have, like, Phantom, you might have to pick him in. If you got one trade left in round 23, you might just have to
surely Tom Green, now Will Gould.
I don't know about that, but
with a VC.
Dan, if Jacob Ware, for example, is not picked this week, and we already think Sam Durden was another one we were hoping might get a go, but it sounds like he'll be playing VFL this week for the Blues. Probably coming up against Essendon's not the greatest week for his chances of playing in the team, because they don't have heaps of tall forwards. They might need him next week against Richmond, but if you need to make that defensive downgrade to facilitate your other moves, would you be prepared to bring in a rookie like that early who hasn't played yet, or would you just bank on a Ware, or would you just try and come up with something completely different?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do that with Sam Durden, knowing that Caleb Marchbank is making as much a way to return as well. So he's going to come back, and I mean, he's not he doesn't take the forward line gorillas, but he can take the second tall, third tall for any team. And I guess Essendon's a good place to cut his teeth and make his return. I think I'd just look elsewhere and look at guys like Judson Clark. I mean, you don't want to grab blokes on the first week. You want to obviously get them on the bubble, but I guess it's going to be pretty grim scenes trying to get to 18 starting players. And for me, I mean, there'll be the Relton Robert decisions he make. You pick a bloke, he scores 14. It's that year. It's always like that. But I'd rather, if it's also facilitating me with the ability to make an upgrade in my side, well, I'm going to make it anyway, because I'm going to try and bring in Cripps and I'm going to bring in Zero. Or if I can still bring Walsh, great. But I'd still look elsewhere. Like, I think the aim this week is to get as close to 18, if not 18, as possible. Like, you just want to get to 18. But I wouldn't bring a bloke like Durden until we just see something that resonates with him playing a few games. Like, Marchbank comes back, plays well, might be sore, gets up for next week, got an 8 or 9 day break, actually got a short break, 6 days. So maybe he does get in, but I'm not going to, at least with Judson Clark, he's named, he's starting, he plays one game, whereas Durden, we don't know what Voss's prerogative is with him. Maybe he's backup only. We don't know. So I wouldn't be picking Durden, and I wouldn't be picking any speculative picks like that. But look, everyone out there, different. Like I think SuperCoach Mama has 15 trades, so she's got 4 extra to me. But I think she might be a premium behind myself. But it just shows you there are people out there that dodged a lot of the carnage. They're probably going to be sitting pretty on a trade front. So they probably can take a few risks like that if they need to create liquidity to make other trades. And I like Phantom's idea all along. You just got to try and fast track that side to premium status. Like tonight, as of the trades opening up or me making my trades, my side is complete. I mean, there's Cornelio, there's Butters, there's also Jordan Ridley, who will recover, I suspect. But that's a premium side. I've never been in round 13. Completely, the portfolio is finished. Like it's done. Like I want Bond, I want Wits, but I'll get them when injuries arise and I'm forced to make those moves. But for now, like I've never had a team full of players 450k plus in every position in round 13. It's amazing. And it just shows you what the boosts have done. And also picking a few young blokes like Brody, Cornelio, and underpriced stars that really flourished this year and paid the dividends that we probably didn't expect we'd get. So Phantom's like flying. He's going to finish tonight, I think, as well. And you guys not far thereafter. So with that in mind, I'm just going to go hell for leather and get 2 more premiums and conclude my side this weekend. That's the plan, even if I field 17, unfortunately.
Phantom, speaking of your boys and young star underpriced mid-prices have really paid off this year. This is a tricky one for you from Sean. Are you keeping Tom Green, or would you take the chance to trade him up? He probably could have done this last week when the Giants were on the bye, but how do you see, is Tom Green a keeper for the rest of the year?
I think if he didn't do it last week, Sean, I wouldn't be doing it right away. I think he probably needed the break. Like he was tiring a little bit. Scored in spurts in the last couple of games before the Giants week off. So I'd wait, let him go a couple of weeks, finish the rest of your team, and then have a look, maybe use one of your trades. Then to upgrade him from another player coming off the bye if he can't get back that early season scoring. But I wouldn't do it this week, especially against North.
Well, that's a good point, actually. Yeah. Actually, I won't. We'll ask Dan Batten about this one. We won't ask the Phantom directly, but Ryan here is saying he's right. He must be ranked about 190 or something to be right behind the Phantom. What do you think about Cornelio? Keeping him as a sort of a swing cover virtually on the bench, or he's saying he could use the money to go and grab one of those absolute top guns. No, our friend Tom Mitchell, we love him. Tim Mitchell was talking earlier today. He traded Cornelio out a few weeks ago and looking at potentially even getting him back because he's got a very low break even and again playing North this week. But what do you think of Ryan's strategy here to try and overtake the Phantom?
Tim trading in a player who's traded out, that's a shock. I've never thought he'd do that. No, but in all seriousness, though, this is an idea that Tim did raise, and I think it is a decent one to have that sort of F7, M9 going into the back end of the year. We've talked about how there's a lack of cover from a rookie perspective, so that could really help you out. But I feel when you're up that high in the rankings, you shouldn't be looking at contingency plans. It should be more just getting the best players available and I guess looking at the point of differences that can separate you from those ahead of you. And those are the guys like particularly a guy like Mills and Laird who came on the scene a little bit late, and Mills who I guess no one except the Phantom could afford because he got him the week before he scored 200. So I think it's one of those guys that you've got to probably prioritize. But the biggest question here is, why are you asking us? I mean, seriously, you are so much better than, well, 3 of us. I reckon you should just back your instinct and go with that.
Yeah, I agree. Dan's point about don't plan for contingencies. Have a go, get the best players in your team. I was going to go down a similar path and keep a Zach Butters at F7 or M9 for the run home, but it limited me with my final midfield trade options. I thought Zach Butters scored 3 tons in a row. He scores early in the year. There were some reasoning for those slight dip in form, the heavy knock, Robbie Gray's absence. So I'm going to keep Zach Butters and I'm going to trade in Sam Walsh this week when I was going to go for Zach Merritt, which I like Zach Merritt as an option, but it just allows me to go for the big guns. And then I'll come out the other side with 8 trades. And then if I have to trade a 1 week or 2 week injury in the run home, that's what I'll do. So I like the idea of having that gun a swing, but again, they might be wasted there some weeks potentially as well. So if you can go for it, get the big gun in and then worry about your bench later, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever been in that luxurious position, and I think it would do my head in because first of all, you'd want some zeros around too, so you could loophole them. You'd be really looking at the orders of the games and trying to, jag the time when he does have a big score. Yeah, it could be really tricky. So, I think just get the players on field that you think are going to score well. Dan Bagala, look, some people still have trade boosts and they can make 4 trades this week, which would be pretty handy. Matthew here is looking at trading Walsh and Sinclair in, plus a couple of rookies, Owens and Jordan Clark, trading out the Koning, Rioli, McComb. Can't argue with any of that. What about Christian Petracca? How do you view how he's going? I'm looking at potentially using that cash left over from Merritt this week to trade him out next week to maybe a Rory Laird or a Callum Mills type coming off their bye. But the problem is his price is going backwards in a hurry. So I guess you could do it this week. But I think if he's playing, you probably just want to have anyone who's playing. But I'm not sure what your thoughts are of those swaps, but on where Petracca's at the moment. I mean, if you haven't got him, he's going to be dirt cheap in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I love the Walsh, Sinclair. I mean, Owens needs to get selected. We're fingers crossed, toes crossed, as Dan Batten said earlier. But the one I didn't know, I was like, Jay Clark. Who is that? I was like, the relevance wasn't really there for me. But Jordan Clark's doing a great job at Free. I watched his games. He looks really good. He looks at home and he's playing in a role.
That'd be Judson, I'm guessing.
Oh, actually, yeah, sorry. Judson.
Jay Clark and the
like, there we go. On pride. So I just think that like Sinclair for me, like I picked him about 3 weeks ago. I loved his trajectory. I love what he was doing. He's the quarterback for St Kilda. Lock him in, get him in his top 4. Walsh, as I said, he'll be the number 1 mid from now on in, and Phantom can benefit from that along with Matthew Gauci. But the track one, that's a big move. Like, I mean, I'm considering next week the same thing. If I don't have enough players, I'll probably short him to Bontempelli or someone that I need coming off their bye in round 13. But I mean, it would take a brave coach to short the Norm Smith medalist who had 40-2 in a grand final. Like, I mean, he's had a form slump. He was ill for one of them. There's a bad flu floating around Melbourne. Maybe he wasn't vaccinated. Maybe he went to a few too many bars and did a few too many advertisements.
Whoa, who knows? Wow.
Who knows? But my view is that they've had a tough 2 weeks, and obviously with the Entrecôte issue and the cultural things coming out. I mean, I watch him do fire on Monday. Like, loves the big stage, big freeze for the Fight MND. I think he'll come out firing, and I think he could be back to his best on Monday. So, I mean, Matt, it would be very audacious to do that, make that move. But I like the rest of them, like DeConing, Rioli, McComb. They've done their job. They've got to the perfect price point. Time to move them on. But that Petracca one, I feel like it could bite you in the backside, and it depends, like, are you able to shut that door and forget about it? Like, I'd probably struggle and watch him go 150, 150, 150 thereafter. But look, if you can have Walsh and Sinclair for the price of 1 primo, maybe it's a good move. And he is going to drop a lot, but I trust that a player of his ilk, again, 40 in a granny with 2 goals, like, he'll bounce back and he'll be up there with the top eight mids. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it'd be a big move. You have to have a lot of trades and be in a really good spot to consider that, I think. So, yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably be my dilemma next week. Or should I just get Walsh this week? Then I won't be able to afford it, and it'll save me having to make that difficult decision. But we better wrap things up shortly. But Phantom, it's been great having you back. We'll get your thoughts on a captain and vice captain potentially this week. What about just quickly answering Jack's question? We know you like Sam Walsh, but these two are around the same price. Well, Sinclair's probably actually trying to be more expensive. So would you take a primo defender or a midfielder?
Oh, interesting. Both low break evens by looks of it too. Sinclair's is 54. I'd probably take Jack Sinclair this week and then look at some of those bigger names in the midfield over the next couple that we've been speaking about. Maybe we don't have a 2 coming off the bye, a Mills or Rory Laird. I'd probably go for that.
Yeah, no, 2 could be a good buy next week too. So captains obviously I've been terrible at this. So who should I be putting the C and the VC on?
It's an interesting one. It's a difficult sort of fixture spread out, obviously, over the 6 days. For me, I reckon I will go on the Friday night, Sam Walsh, VC on his debut in my side against the Bombers. Patrick Cripps could be a potential good option there as well. Then probably I reckon on to the Monday clash at the G, probably Clary Oliver or Max Gawn. If you've got a Josh Kelly, could go big against North Melbourne as well on Sunday. But I think for me, Walsh into Clary or Gawn.
Yeah, Clary, I think seems pretty safe on Monday. Yeah, Gawn, obviously, against Darcy Cameron. Dan, could you bring Gawn in and put the C on him?
I think you could, and that's one of the things I was considering as well. But I think I may have to just, I guess, hope and pray that he doesn't go 130, which I reckon he's a fair chance to do. But Yeah, I'm looking at another ruck for my VC. A little bit of a shooting from the hip, but Sean Darcy, considering his form last week, but 59 for him last week. But if you saw what Darcy Cameron did to the Hawthorn ruck, Ned Reeves on Sunday. So I think that Darcy, hopefully Lloyd Meeks out. That seems to be the thing that sort of impacted his scoring a bit, but hoping he can bounce back as a VC, and then probably looking at an Oliver or potentially a Neil on the Saturday night as captain.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Dan Bagal. Lockie Neal obviously let a few people down, including me. Last week, I think he was the most popular captain pick in KFC SuperCoach, so I wasn't the only one. But do you think he'll bounce back? It was his only sub-100 score for the year. So coming up against the Saints, they up at the Gabba, they don't really tag, so he should go, right, shouldn't he?
Yeah, well, I think like at the start of the week when I had Walsh on my side, my first iteration of trades, he was my VC like Phantom. Like I think he'll go big time tomorrow night. So probably will be Cripps as well. Like I think Cripps debuting again, actually returning to my side after his 1 week hamstring. He'll return and take the VC. But yeah, I think Neil on Saturday, I don't really have the highest level of trust there because I mean, in games gone past, Seb Ross has actually tagged him and done quite a good job. And as we saw on the weekend, I think 2 weeks ago, Mitch Owens, if he survives, he might help out and do some defensive work around him as well. But I don't know. Like I even have worries about Monday's clash as well with Pendlebury. Like he can go to the best mid and he can body them up at the stoppage and clog them up and make their life a bit difficult. So maybe Gawn is the safer net behind the scenes because Mason Cox is probably a nice little tap ruckman, but I think Gawn will just do too much around the ground. And Darcy Cameron spent a lot of time forward, so I don't think he's going to be really threatening against Gawn. But the thing with the matchup of Collingwood is when he does go forward, Gawn, he'll probably have the likes of Darcy Moore matching up against him, who's an all-Australian defensive unit. So that's a pretty tough matchup. Or Jeremy Howe flying across the front trying to take Specky McGee's on him. So there's a lot of things to consider, but I'm hoping Cripps gets it done tomorrow night in the wet. He's a mudder. He loves the wet. He's a tough player. He's coming off a bye. He'll be raring to go. So that's probably where I'm going to land. What about yourself, Al?
Oh, yeah, I was thinking Neil, but yeah, I hadn't really thought too much about Paddy Cripps, to be honest. He's hasn't been scoring as big, in the last month or so. But yeah, as you say, coming off a bye, and if it is going to be wet, that probably is in his favour as well. He's been doing a bit of ruck work though, hasn't he? So Carlton need to get a ruckman in to let him just back to the sort of free roaming ways that he was early in the season. But yeah, it's a tricky one. And now I'm going back and second guessing my thoughts about my trades again as well, thinking maybe I should just get Sam Walsh and I could put the captaincy on him. So, but we better wrap up. I've still got an hour or two to agonise over that. We'll give our famous, of course, zinger of the week. Hang on, let me find the artwork for that. We'll go with Anthony here. I saw a couple of people actually
this is a good one.
Making gags about this because it is a bit tough out there. People trying to afford things and the price of everything's going up, including it seems sometimes the players that we want in KFC SuperCoach. Fortunately, there are still some bargains out there. I think, Zach Merritt's a really good value buy, but someone else was happy
$2 spinach as well, also a value option if you're looking for something for your wrap.
Supplement it.
I've got some lettuce is growing in my backyard, which is helping.
Oh, there we go. Might be selling him. Yeah, just like
whosale.
Yeah, that's it. People just send me a private message.
Out of your
plate.
So yes, very good. Thank you for that, Anthony. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see those teams. Dan, I think, is just logging on at the Herald Sun, so he'll be covering that live.
Yeah,
so
fingers crossed. We'll get it quickly.
Send us the breaking news when hopefully Mitch Owens and Jacob Ware and Braden Pruce are all picked, and some other rookies that we hadn't even thought of. Cooper Hamilton makes a miraculous comeback. That would be nice. So we'll see all that very soon. But good luck, everybody out there. Go Tigers tonight at the G, and we'll catch you next week.
Let's go.
See you guys.
See you guys.